So let's talk about your wildest dreams. As bloggers, what is it that you can never get enough of? Anybody? Subscribers, links, time. So the ones that I picked were attention, which is like links, kind of, time, and income, right? So I've used custom plugins to do all of these. There's some examples. I wrote a plugin that does Google Maps, takes the Groupon deals feed, uses the API, lays on top of Google Maps. So I've got some links, got some attention, and I have yet to put my affiliate links in there, but if someone were to click through the deals, I would also get income from it. I'll do that when I have time. I also wrote a plugin to do, to create some charts to show the different credit cards in different ways, like annual fees, bonuses, so you can compare the different cards. It got me some attention, some links, and some tweets, and again, if people are interested and they click through, then I get a commission on that. Here's an example of a plugin I wrote. It's not really pretty, but it helps me manage my blog carnivals, my submissions, which ones have linked to me, which ones I've linked back to. Another one that helps me do my roundups, makes me more efficient with those. So those are just some examples of the kinds of things you might be able to do to make your wildest dreams come true. But I think theory is boring, so I hired someone to build a plugin called Easy Deals, was what I called it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing you have to do is you have to define your problem. What is it you want to solve? My problem was that, and I mentioned that some of you talk a lot about deals in some fashion. I had to worry about what the dates when they were active, when they expired. How do I handle deals that are recurring? How do I want to categorize them? How do I want to show them on my site? I had a separate WordPress installed for my deals, which was a lot of maintenance. I want to get away from that. And a lot of times deals are small pieces of information that you don't want to put on a main post. So those are my problems. So once you kind of know what it is you're trying to achieve, you want to find a good developer. So you want to avoid this. You don't want to go to Elance and sort by the lowest hourly rate, right? Because these are the kind of things you'll get some experience with WordPress, starting as a freelancer. If you do this, you probably won't get very good results. So avoid this unless you want to do this. This is a PayPal dispute that I had. It took me a month to get my money back, and it was a bad experience, and you don't want to do it. So, Greg Go, he's the CTO of WordPress. He just spoke a little bit ago about SEO. This is a quote I got from him. If a developer's price is too good to be true, it probably is, or usually is, right? So I asked Greg and some other plugin people, or developers, how to find a good developer, right? Referrals, if you know someone that has hired someone, obviously you can get some good referrals that way. If you just search for WordPress plugin developer and you find people on the web, you want to look for their examples. Do they have portfolios? What did they build, and how do they work? So another way that Greg suggested was to there are communities, online communities. StackOverflow.com is another example. Developers will ask and answer questions of each other. And if you can find out like their handle, you can go kind of get a feel for how well they know the topic, the questions they ask and the questions they answer. Profile is another one. People that blog a lot about WordPress development, you can kind of get a feel for how knowledgeable they are. I met the guy that I hired at WordCamp, and he was he pre-presented, and I went to a session, and I hired him. There's actually, this URL is a website where they have recordings of a lot of the videos that they do at WordCamp, and so you could kind of go out there and find people that have presented at WordCamp, see if they're knowledgeable. It'd be a good way to kind of screen people. And then you also want to talk to several different people, because that way you can kind of compare like how the interaction is, and makes it more relative. So that's how you would find someone, right? Or you can call this guy. He's the one I use. His name is Jonathan OneDrush. Bybloggers.net is his website. He was technically, really good, and he's also an easy person to work with. So I recommend him if you're looking for someone. So then the next thing you want to do is you want to define, work with the developer to find your requirements, right? So this is a sample email that I put together. It guarantees your disappointment, right? So basically, if I send this guy Chris Coder, a fictitious person, an email, and I say, hey, I see you write plugins, I have one, I need to manage deals, I need it done by Friday, how much would it cost? So not very much information, right? He comes back and he says, it takes 3 to 4 weeks, costs you this much, send me the money and I'll start on it. Well, if you send him your PayPal payment, and you wait 3 or 4 weeks, you'll be very disappointed with what you get. And the reason for that is because what you have in your mind and what they interpret are guaranteed to be different, right? So, what you want to do is you want to ask them these questions. How do they gather your requirements? How are you going to talk about that? Are you going to email or are you going to call on the phone? How will you have that relationship? Scope changes. If you have things that come up as you go, you want to make changes. How do they handle that process? How are you going to be able to test it? Do they have a test site where you can go out and see it as it's coming along? How are they going to incorporate your feedback into the process? Who's going to own it when they're done? What are the milestones? When are they going to deliver things to you on what days? And then also, how are you going to pay for those things on what schedule? And then finally, when it's finished, what kind of support they offer? So you want to ask all these questions. That email that I showed you, that brief one, is a bad example, but if you can answer these questions, then you're going to be on the right path. This is an example of email I sent to Jonathan. I mean, it's not like a book. It's just, I explained basically, I had a phone conversation with him before this, and I kind of explained what I wanted to do at a high level. He said he was available. But I just, you have to be specific. The more specific you are, the better your results will be, right? So I gave him it's not like I had to spend hours and hours writing them up, but I was pretty specific about what I wanted. And then he responded with this as his estimate, right? And so if you can get something like this, it's a good sign. So basically he laid out what it was that he was going to build, how much he estimated it would cost, and when he would have it completed by. So if you can get something like that, it gives you a good feel for moving forward. Ideally, you would get one of these from multiple different developers, so you can kind of compare the costs.
Ben, what's the cost on there?
Oh, his estimate was, and that's actually interesting because it was $900,
Okay.
and that's what it ended up costing. And I asked him afterwards, I said, "Do you ever come in below your estimate?" Because, and he said, "Usually not." He said, "Usually what happens is it's always something. If it's something he's done before, then he may. But if it's anything new, it always takes as long as they say it would." I mean, it should never go over. They should never charge you if it takes longer because it's their responsibility to stick to what they bid for each. So now you have to look at cost versus benefits. You have estimates from multiple developers, right? So what you want to decide before paying any money is how are you going to measure your success with this plugin? What metrics are you going to use to decide whether it was worth it, whether it paid for itself? And so one of the things you can do with that is you can map out your features of the plugin to the benefit that feature gets you, and then also to the cost of that specific feature. And Jonathan, I asked, because you saw the high-level estimate that he gave. I asked him if I said, if I came back to you and I needed a more detailed breakdown of features and costs, would you give it to me? He said yes, he would, and most people would do that. So once you know what those features will cost, you can kind of play with the numbers a little bit. And Will Chen from Wisespread talked about the Wise 1000 this morning in his speech, and what he told me was that the good way, what they did, and which is a good practice, is you start small, right? They actually started with a blog post, and then they kind of enhanced it over time. They added, they would roll it out, test it, and then when they decided they needed more, they would hire someone, or actually Greg did it, they would add to it. So a good rule of thumb is you want to start small, because you'll always want to do more than it does. But what you'll find out is if you keep adding to it, it'll take forever to get done, and it'll cost way more than you want. So start small, get it to do the core functionality, and use it, and then if you realize that you want more, then you can do another release of it later on. So once you have picked your developer, and they've given you the estimate, you decide it's go time, and then you start the So now, you may think you can sit back and relax, right? You can wait until the 4 weeks are over. Well, if you do that, you'll also be disappointed. You want to stay involved. You have to agree on milestones. So what days are they going to get you your deliverables? And then you want to check in with them periodically, how they're doing, how's it going, what do you need. And if they ask you questions, you want to make sure to get back quickly because they may be waiting on you before they can continue development. And you want to be thinking about your test cases. How are you going to use it when it's done, so that when they give you something to look at, you can go and test it and see if it actually does what you want it to do. Oh, and this is just an illustration of our email thread on Google was like 60 messages back and forth, and this is just some of them. I wanted to show you it's an iterative process. Ideally, you will want to stay in touch with them, work with them, answer questions that they have for you, give feedback, because then you'll get what you get will be much closer to what you want rather than just staying out of the loop. And so then finally when it's done, the way it usually works is you will make your final payment, they'll give you a zip file, and then what you want to do, most developers will provide support for a certain period of time. So you want to get it installed and start using it right away, because if you want to work out any bugs, you want to get that done before that kind of period expires.
How long is that period?
I think Jonathan's was 2 weeks. So I don't really know what the industry standard is, but it's good to get into it right away. You know, because if you wait, if you're busy and then you come back to it later, they may say, well, sorry. I mean, hopefully they won't, but so why does it cost so much, right? I mean, probably when you get the estimate, you'll be surprised and you'll say, well, this is more than I want to pay. So this is just a little snapshot of some of the code that he wrote. I broke it down. 1,050 lines of PHP code, 135 lines of JavaScript, and 385 lines of CSS. So that's like what you physically get, right? It seems like a lot. I mean, not very much for $900. What we're really paying for, excuse me, is his knowledge or their knowledge of the WordPress API. Coding best practices is the best way to do things so that they will work month after month, so that like when WordPress gets upgraded, it won't break. And then basically the solution to your problem, what you define up front, what you wanted to have solve, that's what you're really paying for. And so here are some ways you can actually pay less, right? So you get the estimate, it's way too much. Like I said, you get multiple estimates. Now you don't want to go out and pick the cheapest, you don't want to start off by just picking the cheapest developers, right? Because you're probably going to poor quality. But if you go through and you pick several good developers, then you can compare all of their estimates, and then you can get the lowest of those if you're looking to get the cheapest, right? And I kind of mentioned earlier, reduced functionality. You can ask them for a more detailed estimate and say, well, so this is going to take this many hours and cost this much. Can you break it down? How many hours is each feature going to take? And then you can look at that and say, well, I can take out these 3 features and then pay less for it. Another option, which is a good one, is you can actually find a free plugin and hire someone to customize it, enhance it, tweak it, and that can really reduce the cost a lot. Something else I asked him about, which he's done before, is if there's a group of people that have a need for a plugin, you guys can actually pool your money, decide on what you need, and then he will do it for a group. Now, what he said is he wants a one-point person who makes the payments and handles all the interaction, because he didn't want to have to deal with a whole group of people. But he's done it before already. He says there's no problem doing that. There are even some kind of like crowdsourcing sites, like kind of like Kickstarter, where you can go out and you can have multiple people pay to build a piece of software, and so that's another way you can do it. And I think, well, Phil was kind of a slave driver. He wanted these like a month ago, so I don't actually have screenshots of like everything because I had to turn this in a while back. But this is just like this is a real basic kind of there's only one right now, but this is kind of like the admin page where you list all your deals and you can filter them and you can turn them on and off, and you can look at your different the dates. And this is just an example of like how you would create a deal. Like you put your detail in there and then all your meta information around that. I unfortunately don't have any screenshots of what it looks like when it's done because I didn't have it on the site yet. So I can send you some links to that. Anyway, so this is a question session, and I have you're welcome to ask me questions, and if you don't have questions for me, then I have questions for you. Yes.
I just am a little unclear. So I understand the need for building. Do you own it then? Or does
Yes.
the developer own it?
Well, that's one of the questions you have to ask up front. I mean, in this case, I own the plugin.
Okay. But
Now, there are things like, I talked to him, I said, well, what I wanted to do was to basically give a copy of the plugin away to everyone who came to the conference. But that's a whole different story, because like if I hired him to basically give me, the way it stands now is I own the plugin. But if I wanted to sell it or give it away, then in his case, it's like 3 times as much. And so, does that answer your question?
So you're like, it's the difference between buying all rights to the plugin or buying like fair use and like the ability to modify it.
Right, yeah. Because he's not allowed to like sell it to anyone else. It's
Right.
my plugin. But if I want to try and sell it, then I think he said, well, I can't remember we never like got to the point where we talked about it because he said 2-3 times the cost. And I was like, well, that's all I need to know.
Okay.
And if you tweak plugin, you find out there for free, you need to make sure that it is open source. So you can do that.
Right, yeah. I mean, you have to look at the licensing on it, but yeah. Was there another question over here? You mean if I did sell it? No, basically, if I want to sell it, I would pay him double the cost, and then I would own it, and I could sell it. So the $900 was the price for me to own it. $1,800 would be the price if I wanted to then try and resell it or give it away. Yeah.
Joe talked about like upgrades, like all on, like the next version of WordPress.
Right. Well, that's kind of one of the things I alluded to, where when you hire someone, one of the things they're hiring is knowledge of WordPress and their ability to like, because there's ways that they can build it so that it's trying to be kind of like upgrade proof in a way, which isn't obviously what we can say, but no, I mean you basically get what you pay for, and if it upgrades and breaks, then you have to go back to it. Yeah. I mean, I would always take it to them and say, hey, look, this happened, and if they look at it and say, well, that was kind of my fault, they may fix it, but the chances are obviously what my hourly rate is. Whatever.
Have you ever had to have somebody else work on the plugin or created it not around anymore?
Yeah, I haven't, because I actually wrote them all myself. This one I hired because I wanted to kind of do like a case study of how the whole process works.
Okay.
But you're saying, what if somebody built it and then we had to have someone else work on it?
Yeah, or have you ever had to work on anybody else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've customized it.
Right, okay.
And there's a lot of good and bad. Like, one of the things that people do, or sometimes is if you don't follow certain practices, then it can be incompatible with other plugins. So you may install it, it might work, and then if someone else, some other plugin doesn't want to conflict with it. But there are certain coding practices you can follow that avoid that. So that's why it's important to hire quality developers to kind of avoid those kind of things.
Do you only create WordPress personally? Or?
Yeah, I just, yeah. Yeah, and I guess I should have mentioned this is for WordPress, right?
But you can use the same process.
The process would apply to any content management system, right? Is that it? How much time we have?
About 2 minutes.
I mean, I'm just curious, well, like, what about you guys? Like, what do you, like, one of the signs that if you're really frustrated with something, like, what frustrates you? Like, what would you need? Like, what kind of plugins would you need to build? Like, or something you wish your blog could do? Ideas or nothing like, there's no like burning desire or anything like that. I wish my site could do this or, because that's how it usually happened with me, is like, I would need it, like, from like, especially the time management ones, I'm like, this is taking too long, there's gotta be a better way, so I sit down. So that's kind of sometimes like, you may find that if you get to a point where you really are the time constraints, where you really, it's something to think about, it's a process, because they can make a big difference. Thanks. Yeah.
I think we have a break now for 30 minutes, and then check your schedules to go to whichever session you want to go to after that.